HOA Karen Poison Park Garden fined $200 and replanted it. The air in Willow Creek Park was thick with the scent of betrayal. Or maybe it was just the acrid tang of herbicide still lingering on the breeze. Karen Whitaker, in her pristine white sneakers and a self-righteous smirk, stood at the edge of the community garden, arms folded like a general surveying a conquered battlefield. To her, the wilted roses and shriveled ferns were a victory, a necessary purge of what she called that tacky eyesore. I'm Lila, a 26-year-old barista who'd spent the last 3 years turning this patch of dirt into a blooming sanctuary. Every seedling I'd planted, every callus on my hands, every sunrise I'd spent kneeling in the soil, it was all dying before my eyes. The garden wasn't just plants, it was a promise to my late grandmother, who taught me that beauty could grow anywhere, even in a forgotten corner of a suburban park. I stood there, trembling, my fists clenched, staring at the devastation Karen had wrought. It started innocently enough, or so I thought. Willow Creek's HOA had always been a thorn in our side, with their endless rules about mailbox colors and lawn heights. Karen, the HOA president, was their self-appointed enforcer, her clipboard a scepter, her word law. When we started the garden, she'd scoffed, calling it a hippie project that lowered property values. I'd ignored her, thinking she'd move on to harassing someone else about their untrimmed hedges. I was wrong. The trouble began 6 months ago when Karen started showing up at the garden. Her lips pursed, jotting notes on her clipboard. "These wildflowers attract bees," she'd said once, swatting at an imaginary swarm. Someone could get stung. Liability issue. I'd laughed it off, explaining how pollinators were vital, how the garden fed butterflies and birds. She just rolled her eyes and stormed off, her heels clicking on the pavement. But the complaints escalated. She'd email the HOA board daily, claiming the garden violated some obscure bylaw about non-approved landscaping. She'd corner neighbors at meetings, spinning tales of how our marigolds were a public nuisance or how the compost bin smelled like a landfill. Most folks ignored her. Our garden was a point of pride, a place where kids painted rocks and retirees swapped cuttings. But Karen didn't need support. She needed control. One spring morning, I arrived to find yellow caution tape draped across the garden's entrance. A handwritten sign declared it under review by the HOA. My heart sank, but I wasn't alone. Javier, a quiet widower in his 60s who'd planted zinnias in memory of his wife, was already there, his hands shaking as he tore down the tape. "This is our place," he said, voice low but fierce. "She can't take it." We rallied, neighbors signed petitions, and I presented a 20-page proposal to the HOA, complete with ecological studies and community testimonials. Even Mrs. Delaney, the 80-year-old who barely left her porch, hobbled over to vouch for us, saying the garden's colors gave her something to live for. For a moment, it felt like we'd won. The board voted to keep the garden, and Karen's face at that meeting pinched red, like she'd swallowed a lemon was almost worth framing. But Karen wasn't done. She never was. A week later, I noticed the first signs of trouble: wilting leaves on the sunflowers, brown edges creeping across the lavender. At first, I thought it was drought or pests. I tested the soil, adjusted the watering, but the plants kept dying. Then Javier found an empty herbicide canister tucked behind a bench, its label boasting total vegetation killer. My stomach churned. This wasn't nature's doing, it was sabotage. The twist came when Sophie, a shy 14-year-old who volunteered with us, showed me her phone. She'd been filming a time-lapse of the garden for a school project and caught something on her footage. Karen, in the dead of night, spraying the beds with a canister, her face lit by the glow of a flashlight. Sophie hadn't meant to play detective. She'd just been in the right place at the wrong time. Her hands shook as she showed me, whispering. I didn't know what to do. I felt like I'd been punched. This wasn't just about plants anymore. It was personal. Karen had poisoned not just our garden, but the trust we'd built, the memories we'd planted. I called an emergency meeting at the park, and word spread fast. By dusk, 24 neighbors stood with me, staring at the wreckage. Javier clutched a dead zinnia, his eyes wet. Mrs. Delaney leaned on her cane, muttering about that wretched woman. Even Sophie, usually too timid to speak, was there, her phone clutched like a weapon. I confronted Karen the next day. The video queued up on Sophie's phone. Karen's house was a sterile fortress of beige, her lawn manicured to an unnatural sheen. She opened the door, her smile faltering when she saw the crowd behind me, neighbors, gardeners, even a local reporter who'd caught wind of the story. "What's this about?" she snapped, adjusting her pearl earrings. I held up the phone. "Care to explain why you were poisoning our garden at 2 a.m.?" My voice was steady, but inside, I was a wildfire. The crowd murmured, and Sophie hit play. There it was, Karen, in her pristine cardigan, dousing our roses with death. The video looped, her flashlight beam cutting through the dark, her expression cold and deliberate. Karen's face went from smug to ashen. "That's not me," she stammered, but her voice cracked. "This is a setup. You people are obsessed with that weed patch." The crowd wasn't having it. Javier stepped forward, holding up his wilted zinnia. "This was for my Maria," he said, voice breaking. "You had no right." The reporter, sensing blood in the water, started asking questions. "Mrs. Whitaker, did you know herbicide use on public property is a finable offense?" Karen's eyes darted, searching for an escape, but the crowd closed in, not with violence, but with righteous anger. "Mrs. Delaney pointed her cane. "You've gone too far. Karen, this isn't just about flowers, it's about us." The confrontation exploded from there. Karen tried to slam the door, but I wedged my foot in, demanding answers. Why, I shouted. Why destroy something we all loved? Her response was a sneer, but it was hollow. "You think you're so noble with your little dirt patch?" She spat. "It's a blight on this neighborhood, and I did what was necessary." Necessary. The word landed like a slap. I thought of my grandmother, her hands guiding mine through the soil, teaching me that growth was an act of hope. Karen didn't just kill plants, she killed that hope. The crowd's voices rose, a chorus of outrage. Someone called the police, and soon, blue lights flashed in her driveway. The fallout was swift and brutal. The police confirmed the herbicide matched the canister Sophie's video showed. Karen's act wasn't just vandalism, it was a violation of environmental laws. Given the park's protected status, the city fined her $200,000, a sum that made even the reporter gasp. But that wasn't the end. The judge, a gardener herself, ordered Karen to fund the garden's restoration and personally replant every inch under community supervision. The replanting day was a spectacle. Karen, in court-mandated overalls, knelt in the dirt, her face a mask of humiliation as neighbors watched. I handed her a trowel, my voice calm but firm. "You broke it. You fix it." She didn't meet my eyes, just dug silently, her hands trembling. Javier planted new zinnias beside her, whispering, "For Maria." Sophie documented it all, her camera steady now, capturing justice in every frame. The garden came back stronger. New roses bloomed, brighter than before. Mrs. Delaney painted a sign for the entrance, Willow Creek Community Garden, built by us, not her. We held a reopening ceremony, and the park overflowed with laughter, music, and life. Karen wasn't invited, but I saw her once, driving by, her face a shadow behind tinted windows. She didn't stop. In the end, the garden wasn't just about flowers, it was about us, our fight, our roots. Karen thought she could kill that, but she only made us grow deeper. What do you think? Did she get what she deserved? Or should justice have been harsher? Share your thoughts. We're all ears.